All right. Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Nia. I'm here today with Cecilia. She is a former track and field athlete from Virginia Tech, and I am happy to have her on this series. She is our second athlete on Volume 2. So I'm very happy that she is here with us today. I know she's going to bring a great perspective. So Cecilia, welcome, and thank you for being vulnerable today and like taking the time out to do this. So just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Nia. I'm Cecilia. As Nia said, I did track and field at Virginia Tech during my undergrad, and I'm now in grad school studying athletic counseling.
Awesome. Awesome. That's awesome. Athletic counseling. We'll get into that. So how long were you an athlete for? And can you kind of give us a rundown on your athletic background?
Definitely. So I have been an athlete for as long as I can remember. Started in dance and moved into cheer like when I was younger. I did all-star cheer and school cheer through high school. And in eighth grade, I started track. And so I kind of balanced all of those together during high school, super busy. Um, and then had several facial fractures. So I had to stop cheer my senior year, which really allowed me to focus into track, which I'm super grateful for now because it definitely led me down the path I am in today. So definitely like the second half of my senior year, I was really track focused and started that recruiting process a little bit later than a lot of people, but was able to walk on at Virginia Tech where I competed for 4 years in the triple jump.
Awesome. Okay. Being a walk-on, did not know that. Um,
Yes.
so can you kind of give us a definition of like what is your definition of mental health and kind of why you think athletes' mental health is overlooked?
So I have a pretty like casual definition of mental health. It's really just like whatever is going on in your brain at the moment, whether that's good or bad. It's just like your emotions and thoughts that are happening up there. I think like over defining mental health can make it scary, so I definitely like to keep it as simple as possible. And I think it's overlooked for athletes just because we're taught to be so mentally tough all the time. Like you're taught that if you're struggling, you need to put in extra reps after practice. You need to leave whatever's happening at the door so that you can be your best athlete self in practice. And so, like, all of those extra reps and that mentality carries into our mental health. So, like, I, as an athlete, thought that I could fix my mental health problems just like I could make myself better through extra reps or through just like my mental toughness and my will. And I think that you really need those extra tools in your mental, just like we prepare physically, like you need those extra mental tools to be able to handle that.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. Um, did I know you cheered? So what was the transition like for you from cheer to track?
Um, it's definitely interesting. I liked the two sports in different ways. Cheer definitely had more of that team aspect for me, where when I went to track, it's like an individual but team sport. So that was an interesting shift for me. Also, just like transitioning out of cheer and into college and into track more heavily, like my body went through a lot of changes. So that was like difficult at the time to go through. So there was just like a lot of change there. And then being in collegiate athletics, learning how to train the way that they train and lift and all these new things that I had never done before was super new. So lots of new and challenging experiences.
Okay. Speaking of the body changing aspect, can you kind of talk to that a little bit? Like, were there any mental struggles with that, or like what was your challenge with your body changes?
I think there was definitely mental struggles that come with that. Just because like in general, in women in sports, like you're taught society teaches you body standards to be one thing, to be a feminine woman, and in athletics, like it's totally another thing. Your body type and strength has to be different than like the typical societal definition as a woman. So just combating that while my body was like growing and changing and becoming more muscular was really challenging. But I definitely fell in love with lifting and like the process of getting stronger and getting faster. So I think like by the end of college, I was a lot happier with myself and my body than the initial struggle at the beginning.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really awesome. So while you were in track, did you like how did it affect you mentally, positively or negatively? And did you, I know you're not running track anymore, so are you struggling with like any mental health issues post that? Um, Yeah.
Um, I definitely had a huge impact on my mental health. So I struggled with injury a ton while I ran track. I basically had consistent shin splints throughout college, and most every year they progressed into stress fractures. So that was like a challenging thing for me to cope with because I wasn't able to perform at the level I wanted to. And I wasn't able to train as hard as I wanted to get to that performance. So there was a lot of like disconnect and isolation from the team there sometimes while I was going through those things. And also, I just had a lot of general performance anxiety. I just wasn't confident in myself. Again, part of that was because I couldn't get those same reps in that I wanted to. So I like went through an entire season where I literally fouled all my jumps, and that was super frustrating. But definitely kind of worked through that a little bit and got it better by senior year. But performance anxiety was a big thing that I struggled with.
I've never really heard anybody talk about performance anxiety. I haven't heard that yet. Can you kind of like speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. I think so I'm a perfectionist, a
Mm,
recovering perfectionist. So I just like want to do everything my best all the time. And I think I was like so focused on producing my best jump every single time that I just like completely freaked myself out and like couldn't finish my last phase for any jumps. So that was really hard to go through because I would be fine in practice and then it would be time to compete and I would just like lose it and lose my training and like not trust in that process.
mm, yeah, no. So how were you able to overcome that? Because it has to be like a common thing in athletes, it's just not talked about. So how did you overcome that?
Yeah, thankfully, my coach was really great and provided a lot of support there. Virginia Tech also had a great sports psychology staff, and so I went to counseling there with the sports psych staff, which was the first time that I had ever been in the counseling environment. And my counselor really just taught me a ton of mental skills and just like helped me talk through things and realize where some of my thoughts were irrational and like helped me understand what made me confident, helped me understand how excited I like to be when I perform so that I could like better prepare for competition and go into that feeling a little bit better.
Mm. Speaking of counseling, you are pursuing that athletic counseling at that, which is awesome. So can you kind of tell us like what made you get into that and maybe what you've learned so far that like you can tie into in the future?
Absolutely. So, really largely my counseling process and mental health struggles during track at Virginia Tech led me to pursue athletic counseling. And I think it's just like a very cool field because it focuses on that mental health aspect for athletes that is often overlooked. And we really do a lot of mental skill work with teams and at the individual level. But just a huge thing in that is holistic development of athletes, which I'm really passionate about. Because we do a lot of things that are transferable to outside of your sport that I think is super important because no matter what sport you do, like it doesn't last the rest of your life. So, like developing those skills and having an outlet outside of just your sport is really helpful.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I definitely agree with that. If so, I know that you like had an amazing team at Virginia Tech, and I'm so glad that was in place. What would you like tell people who don't have that support system though?
Um, I would say this is like very counterintuitive to anything a coach would ever say, but I would say plug into things outside your sport a little bit. Just like explore other parts of your identity because sport is so important in making people who they are. And it's also just a small part of them. And so, like, having an outlet outside of your sport when it gets really frustrating and it's influencing your mental health is so important so that you can just go take a breath from it and know that you are more than your sport, like, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Um, very, very true. What is something that you feel like is needed for athletes like post career, like transition wise? What do you think is very important or that is needed for them?
Um, I have like a lot of things for this one.
Go crazy, go crazy.
I think career health is super important just because a lot of our time is taken up by sports. So you don't necessarily get that same internship experience that a lot of people have. And so many of the skills that you develop in sport are transferable to the workplace. So just like resume building and talking with athletes so that they understand how much the work they've done will carry over to the workplace, like regardless of experience in internships. And also, I think like a group exercise would be really cool for people leaving their sport, just because when you have a coach design your workouts for so long, it's like, what do I even like to do for movement? And how do I do it myself? So, giving that opportunity to kind of work through that and explore different movements for your body that you can take outside of your sport would be really cool.
No, yeah, that's awesome. I think that's very, very true. Career too. That's a big thing. I think a lot of people, which is, it isn't bad to have dreams and it isn't bad to like want to chase just that. 100% support that. But you do have a lot of athletes that are in limbo with like really pursuing that and then like going for a career. So I definitely think that like that's a really good point. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to those doing track right now and to those who are done with the sport and like maybe struggling?
Um, I think to those doing track right now, I would, or any sport right now, I would still say like you are so much more than the sport and the outcome, and like the amount of work that you're putting in, you should be proud of yourself for, just because it's really incredible when you step back and think about like all of the things that student athletes and athletes in general are balancing. And for those out of the sport, I would say talk to someone who used to be in sport or in your sport and has transitioned out, because it's so helpful to have that outlet, and also just talk about what is going on and how to cope with that, and do something that you could never do during your sport. Like I went skiing for the first time ever last year because I couldn't really do that during in season, and that was super fun and challenging. So just like explore the things that you couldn't necessarily do before.
No, that's awesome. Wow. No, that was good. This was good. So we are at the end. You honestly gave a lot of insight, especially things that I was sitting here and I was like jotting down, like, okay, wow, I need to look at this. So I definitely appreciate you for being here and taking the time out to just like give these different pieces of advice. And like you being an athletic counselor, I think you're going to be absolutely amazing. I think you will have a lot to
Thank
give
you.
to that. So keep going with that 100%. Is there anything else that you want to leave for us? Or are we good?
I don't think so. Just thank you so much for having me. And I love watching all that you do.
Oh my gosh, of course. Well, thank you so much, Cecilia.